I start if I haven't read in years?
What if I get bored easily?
What is a good first book that won't overwhelm me? Are there books that actually don't feel like work? What's a book that will make me fall in love with reading? If you have asked yourself any of these questions, then you have made it to the right place. I was never a big reader growing up, so I'm here to give you book recommendations across 4 different genres that will hook you back into loving reading again. Whether you are just starting your reading journey or are looking to explore new genres, I have got the perfect recommendations for you. If you are new to reading, I'm going to give you 5 tips that will help you get into loving it. First up is finding a genre that you really love. For me, I usually go off the type of TV shows or movies that I watch. I love watching rom-coms, so I naturally go to romance books. That is the best way to not push yourself to read something that you do not think you're interested in, and however, go to something more familiar to you. Number 2 is start small. Do not force yourself to read a whole book in a day. However, if you do, honestly, that's amazing. Don't aim for unrealistic goals. Aim for maybe 5 to 10 pages a day to get acclimated to reading and the routine. Finishing short sessions fuels the momentum to build a goal and make reading feel easy compared to a difficult task that starts to feel like work. Number 3 is make it a part of your routine, whether it's before bed, during coffee, or even listening to an audiobook while you're in the car. Just have a habit that you can consistently do, and it will make your routine come more naturally. Consistency matters more than the amount that you read. Number 4 is simply don't read books that you don't enjoy. This has definitely been something I have struggled with over the years, so I highly recommend if you're not loving a book 50, even 100 pages in, don't feel like you have to finish it. Close the book, move on to another one. Finding the right book that truly resonates with you is the key of falling in love with reading. And number 5, this is something that I personally have always done, and it is keeping track of your reading. I personally love using Fable. I can track not only the books that I read, but also how many days and pages I've read. Being able to physically see my goal definitely pushes me to read more. Whether you decide to read a long book, a novella, or even listen to an audiobook, the most important thing that you can do is establish a routine. First up, starting in romance, we have Picking Daisies on Sundays by Liana Cincotti. I have been nonstop talking about this book ever since I read it. This book is super short and fast paced, and I literally read it in one sitting. I could not put it down. In this book, we follow childhood friends Daisy and Levi as they are growing themselves over time as well as their relationship with one another. Daisy agrees to fake date her best friend for a family wedding and finds old feelings resurfacing. This book is heartwarming, easy to follow, and a perfect read for someone who is just getting back into reading. Alright, next up we have A Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Christina Lauren has some of the easiest reads I have read. They are super fast paced and very, very engaging. In this book, we are following 2 different timelines, past and present. In the present timeline, we follow Macy, who runs into her childhood first love, Elliot. We are following in the past, all those years ago, what drove Elliot and Macy together and what ended up tearing them apart. This book explores the elements of how deep first love can go and what it really takes to confront the past. This book was very fast paced and fun to read, and it honestly got me into reading myself as well. So I highly, highly recommend this book. Alright, next up we have Beat to Read by Emily Henry. This is the first Emily Henry book I have read, and it has just led me in a spiral to reading every other book she has published. Emily Henry always has such fun topics in her books, and she never fails to give me an engaging and fun, fast paced read. In this book, we are following 2 writers who specialize in 2 completely opposite genres, and these 2 authors are neighbors for the summer. They find themselves both having writer's block, so they agreed for the summer they are going to swap and write a book in each other's genre. I absolutely love this book because the dialogue between our 2 main characters just felt so witty, heartfelt, and just so very real. This is a perfect book if you were beginning your reading journey or even looking to get into romance genres because it is so fun, engaging, and does not feel intimidating at all going into this, even if you are not usually a big reader. Alright, next and the last book in the romance genre, we have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. In my opinion, this book is very, very similar to how Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren is. So if you have read one, I definitely recommend reading the other if you did like it. In this book, we are also following 2 timelines, one from the past, one in the present. For 6 summers, we follow Sam and Percy, who are best friends, which leads to something more. However, their relationship eventually takes a turn for the worse. When Percy returns to the lake for Sam's mother's funeral, they find that their connection is just as strong as all those years ago. This is another book that is very fun and fast paced, and if you have not read it, I definitely recommend it. This is another book that got me into reading as well, so if you have not read it yet, I highly, highly recommend, because this is another book that also got me into reading. And if you love this book just as much, it has a whole series following different characters from this same book. All right, next up is fantasy. I know fantasy can be one of the most intimidating genres to get into. It was definitely one for me. However, by starting with some of the books I'm about to give you, it made the process a lot easier. And now I find myself reading 900-page fantasy books, which is honestly crazy. If 2 years ago me saw myself, I would be in utter disbelief. Through the recommendations that I'm about to give, it kind of goes along the same thing that you'll notice is that when beginning to get into fantasy, I think the number one thing that will help is not starting a book that has a lot of world building or just a lot of elaborate details that you're not yet used to. That was the one thing that I did wrong. I think my first fantasy book was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And even though I loved that book, I feel like I didn't fully get to understand it to my greatest power, because I feel like I couldn't understand it to what I really could now, because I never really understood the whole world building that we're taking through and the powers that they all hold and the politics that is in a lot of these fantasy books. So first up, we have Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This is book one of the Powerless series, and to this day, Powerless is still one of my all-time favorite fantasy series. In this book, we have two types of people. There are the ones with powers, who are the elites, and those without them, or the ordinaries. The elites are running around trying to rid the world of the ordinaries, and throughout this book, we are following Peyton Gray, who is an ordinary. She finds herself called to the royal trials that happen every year, which is a showcase of power and also survival towards the whole continent. Since she is powerless, she has to display to the whole world that she does have powers, and also trying not to die in the meantime. Although this one may sound a tad intimidating, I think this is one of the easiest fantasy books that I have read, and it is a lot lighter on a bunch of different fantasy elements than many other books. I think that if you're looking to get into a fantasy world, then this is the perfect place to start. Alright, next up we have Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I absolutely loved this trilogy, and after you finish this trilogy, there's actually another interconnected trilogy called Once Upon a Broken Heart, and it is one of my all-time favorite series ever. So I highly, highly, highly recommend anything by Stephanie Garber. This book follows Scarlett, who always has dreamed to see the faraway once-a-year show Caraval. After many years, Scarlett and her sister Donatella finally receive their invitation. However, once they arrive, Scarlett's sister Donatella is kidnapped by Legend, the mastermind behind all of this, and it turns out that Donatella is the main plot of this year's game. Scarlett must find Donatella before the 5 nights of Caraval are over, or else a dangerous domino effect of consequences will be set off, and her sister will disappear forever. This book was incredibly high stakes and very, very, very fast paced, and I loved reading every second of it. This is one of my 5-star series. The way that Stephanie Garber just creates her magical world is just so intriguing, and it is just an amazing book to read. Alright, for this next one, if you have not seen the movie by now, I would genuinely be very surprised, but I guess I would give you the perfect opportunity to read the book first, and that is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. This basically, if you do not already know, goes through Harry's acceptance to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. As Harry learns more about himself, his family, his powers, very terrible things are arising on school grounds, and it is up to Harry and his friends to save the school. This book is such a classic and so nostalgic to me. If you have not read it already, then I definitely recommend that you give it a shot. Last but not least, we have Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is a book I just read, but I've been putting it off for so long because it seemed so intimidating to me. But as soon as I read it, I understand why it received all the hype that it did. Fourth Wing is the first book in a running series. However, I only really liked the first book so far, so I do recommend you read this one. But if you are looking to read the whole series, just be cautious that it does kind of go downhill after the first one. However, this is still an amazing book. We follow Violet Sorrengail, who is set to enter the scribe quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history, when her mother, who is the general of the Word College, calls her to the Writers' Quadrant. In the Writers' Quadrant, the hundreds of students who apply attempt to live through these dangerous trials in order to become a dragon writer. This book is survival of the fittest as we watch Violet defy the odds and compete for her place in school. This book was so incredibly fast-paced and never had a dull moment. This also contained strong elements of romance, so if you do already love romance and want to get into fantasy, this is a great book that is about half romance, half fantasy, so it's a little bit of each, so you are not completely unfamiliar to the topics seen within this book. Alright, next up we have literary fiction. This is a genre that I am looking myself to get into more. As I am finding these amazing books that are helping me get more into this genre, I want to recommend those to you, because if they helped me, I'm sure they can help someone else as well. First up is Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Plow. This is one of my all-time favorite books that I have read, and I just read it last December. In this book, we are following 14-year-old Mary Jane, who has been raised in a very traditional family. She receives a job to babysit one of the families on her street's child for the summer. However, this family is very different than Mary Jane's, and they introduce her to a world full of music, sex, drugs, and Mary Jane ends up gaining this new perspective for life that she has never seen before. She ends up gaining a true perspective of what she really wants out of her life. This book just contains so much character development and very strong found family elements that just made this book feel incredibly heartwarming and relatable. This is one of the first literary fiction books that I read and in one sitting, so I highly recommend that you check this one out. Alright, next up is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book also has an adaptation over on Amazon Prime, so I definitely recommend you watch that series as well. It is one of my favorite book adaptations. In this book, we are following the band Daisy Jones and the Six as they get their footing and become one of the most popular bands in the 1960s. This book is actually written in a script style, so I find that it is very easy to read. We see the different events that made the band so popular as well as what tore it all down in the end. This book is just so drama-filled, emotionally shocking, and it not only gives perspective to what a rock band is like in the 1960s, but it also covers topics such as drug and alcohol abuse, cheating, and the cost of what fame really is. I absolutely loved reading this book. It was unlike any book that I've ever read, honestly. And on top of that, with the TV show adaptation, it just made my love for this book go so much farther. Alright, next up we have Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. Annabelle Monaghan has grown to become one of my favorite authors. If you love romance books, you will definitely love her books. I find many people say that she is a romance author, but personally, I consider her literary fiction just simply due to the heavy topics she includes in her books. For instance, in this one, we see divorce, single parents, and emotional vulnerability throughout. In this book, we are looking at Nora, who is a screenwriter and is currently writing a script about her own life and the downfall of her marriage. Her script is picked up by a huge film agency, and it is actually being set to film at her own house. This book is super short and incredibly fast-paced, and it is such a great foot into the literary fiction world if you are looking for some recommendations to get a foot into that genre. Alright, last we have The Favorites by Lane Fargo. We follow Kat, who dreams of being an Olympic skater, and when she meets Heath, they are such an unmatched duo. In this book, we watch Kat and Heath go from childhood friends to lovers to even Olympic partners. We are actually led through a documentary style sequence, and it follows the truth about what Kat and Heath's story really was. This book was so drama and emotion filled. This book was super fast paced and had me hooked from the first page. If you love sports, rivalries, and drama, this is the perfect book for you. Alright, moving into the mystery thriller category, we're going to be studying with The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. In this book, we are following 17-year-old Cassie, who is exceptional at reading other people and piecing together even the smallest details about them. One day, Cassie is contacted by the FBI to join a program they created with a bunch of teens with incredible abilities like Cassie herself to solve cases that not even the best FBI agents have solved. This book is one of my absolute favorites in the mystery genre. The Naturals is so fast paced, it literally has you guessing what is actually happening up until the very last page. You truly grow to love each and every character and the relationships that they grow with one another. And the found family in this book is just so heartwarming, and absolutely lovable, and I highly, highly recommend. Next up, a very, very popular mystery book, and also it just came out with a movie adaptation. That is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. This is the first book I've actually read by Frida McFadden, and she did not let me down. Her books are super fast paced and can get you out of any reading slump. In this book, we follow Millie, who has just been released on parole as she's looking for a job. She lands a position as a housemaid for the Winchesters, a very rich and well-respected family. However, things start to go sideways very fast when Nina Winchester starts making messes just for Millie to clean up and telling lies about her own family. This book is incredibly fast paced and always keeps you guessing on what really is happening. I could not even expect what really happened at the end of this book, and it just made me truly fall in love with this genre, and I was so shocked days after I finished. Next up, we have The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. I literally was sobbing after I finished this book because the ending was just so insane and I did not expect it at all. An unreliable narrator can really move emotions in a way that you never expected. This is definitely one of the first mystery books that I got and really got me into the genre as well. In this book, we are following Sarah, who is a powerful defense attorney, and also Adam, who is tiring of his marriage to Sarah due to her dedication to her work. In their second home, Adam finds himself having an affair with a woman named Kelly. However, one morning he also finds himself arrested for the murder of Kelly in that same home. Sarah soon finds herself playing the defender for her own husband. This book takes us through Adam's trials as Sarah tries to prove him innocent when all the proof points him guilty. And last but not least, we have Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Alice Feeney has grown to become one of my favorite mystery thriller authors. After reading this book, I became not only obsessed with her, but also her writing. It is just so beautiful and captures the story in such a powerful and engaging way. When reading the synopsis, it says, when Adam and Amelia went a weekend away to Scotland, it might be just what their marriage needs. Screenwriter Adam Wright has lived with face blindness his whole life. He can't recognize friends or family or even his own wife. Every anniversary, the couple exchanges traditional gifts: paper, cotton, pottery, tin. And each year, Adam's wife writes him a letter that she never lets him read until now. They both know this weekend will make or break their marriage, but they didn't randomly win this trip. One of them is lying, and someone doesn't want them to live happily ever after. I did not know what to expect going into this book, but it was not what it was in the best way possible. Growing closer to each character in this book and knowing more of what happened makes the twist even more insane, in my opinion. I still think about this book constantly, and if you're just looking for a shocking mystery book, I definitely recommend that you read this one. Alright, those are the books that I recommend if you are looking to get into reading, expanding the genres that you are reading, or even just looking for a new book recommendation. I personally loved each and every one of these books, and so I hope you love them just as much as I did. If you have read any of these books or plan to, drop a comment and let me know which one. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video and got some useful recommendations out of it, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!